What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Pitts on Pitts and Push Sports Talk Radio. Coming to you live, Coach Bernard Clark Jr., head coach, Robert Morris University. As you know, every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, you can catch us together 9:30 a.m. Good morning, Coach. How you doing?
Doing well. Everything's going good. No complaints. Just not real happy about the results on Saturday, but I'm doing well.
So Saturday, of course, didn't go the way you would like. What were your early on thoughts as the game unfolded?
Well, the good thing about it, as you see, when the game started out, we didn't score in the first quarter. They didn't score in the first quarter. So I knew it was going to be a tough game. Howard's a great team. They're coached well. I know they're coached pretty daggum good. Him and I coached together. Coach Larry Scott and I coached together at the University of South Florida back in 2006, I think it was. I think
Okay,
that's when it was, a while ago. But anyway, it's one of those situations where I knew they'd be a well-coached team, and we watched them on film. Like I said, they were top in the nation in all-purpose offense and leading one of the leaders in the nation in doing that. So we knew they were going to be a tough opponent. The thing that was disappointing was as we started playing in the second quarter, we started having those penalties that I talked to you about before, and we started missing tackles. So those things just really started weighing on me and started kind of upsetting me a little bit because we were starting to, on top of playing a good football team, we started playing poorly. And once we
right.
started playing poorly is when things started unraveling a little bit. And when they scored a touchdown here, and then we got a unsportsmanlike conduct to keep their drive going. And so just crazy things just started happening.
So early on, the game was actually a lot closer, than it really appeared. And it was like you said, from my perspective or from my point of view, it was different things. Whether it was penalties that either help keep their drive going or penalties that would then stymie your drives. Because I believe in the end of the first half or the first group, it was like 10-7 or 10-0.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, so it wasn't a far off game. Think when we talk about flipping the field or whatnot, special teams wise, they had a couple special team plays that sparked them on that one return. But overall, in my opinion, I thought the game plan, from what I can see, as far as the 11-person personnel, like whether it was the offensive set or even defense, it was more on the execution of the players. And
Absolutely.
from
Absolutely. I agree with
from
you.
my perspective, it looked like they got too caught up into, at that point, they got too caught up in the back and forth with the words on the field, that they start talking instead of letting their pads talk.
Well, that's the whole thing, and that's what I talked to them about on Friday. Before when we had our walkthrough on Friday, the first thing I said, "Hey guys, don't get back and forth with the jawing back and forth." I said, "These guys do a good job of doing that, baiting you into joining with them and going back and forth. We don't need that. We just need to play football, and that started early. So when you talk about the first quarter ends at 0-0. Second quarter started, we're driving the ball. We get down, we convert, we get a penalty. So now we get a penalty. So now we go, it's 3rd and 6. We don't get it. Now it's 4th and 6. We throw the ball to our best receiver. He drops it. So now offense is off the field, defense is on the field. Defense goes on the field. We stop them. As soon as we stop them, one of our linebackers goes and starts talking trash to their side of the ball, their sideline. We get an unsportsmanlike conduct. So now that keeps their drive
Mm,
going right after we just stopped them on 4th down. So
right.
and then they go down and they score a touchdown. We get the ball back. We go down. We score a touchdown. We kick it off to them. They return the kick for us. So, like I said, things started unraveling from that point on. I just felt like our guys mentally got out of it. And then that's when we started missing tackles. I think in the second quarter alone, Pitts, we must have missed at least 15 tackles. We missed 4 tackles on one play one time. So that's
Right.
the crazy thing about what was going on.
When we go back and we talk about how penalties kill, that sequence that you just spoke of, I do remember. I want to say it was a linebacker made a very good play, and it was on their sideline. And instead of going back to the huddle or going to his sideline, he went basically like walked on their sideline right in front of the referee. You
Right.
know, out like whole time I'm screaming from the other end zone, like, go to your sideline, because nothing good comes from that. Like
Yep.
when you walk on their sideline, even though the tackle was made near their sideline, but then you do it in front of the referee, gotta be more heads up in
Yeah,
regards to knowing that, those 15 yards hurt because it was fourth down.
yeah, and those are the things that bother me because that looks like a team that's undisciplined, and so
Yes.
that's what bothers me when you have teams doing stuff like that. That's when it starts looking like a team that's undisciplined. So now I have to retaliate and find a punishment in practice to make sure we're not doing that. And so what we decided to do in practice, I don't want the offense talking to the defense, and I don't want the defense talk to the offense. So let's get used to doing it in practice. So because what you do in practice, what you do in the game, because I like for guys to have a good time in practice. Because again, I'm a product of my environment. I played at the
Right.
University of Miami. That's all we did in practice was jaw back and forth with each other. But we got work done. See, that's the difference. When you're jawing back and forth and not getting work done, then it's a problem. So now in practice, what we implement is I don't want the offense talking to the defense, and I don't want the defense talking to the offense. If I see it happening, we're going to do up downs, we're going to do running or something along those lines because it's hurting us in games. Right now, we're last in the conference in penalties. We're getting more penalties than anybody else. And again, those things hurt us. Those things put us in a bad position in order to win football games. So we have to straighten that out as coaches, and I have to straighten that out as the head coach to make our guys understand the importance of not getting dumb penalties. And you and I talked about unnecessary penalty and a dumb penalty,
Right.
but we've been getting dumb penalties.
What what the offensive line, there seem to be some good runs, they have some traction, and then not as much. What was it about in this particular game that it appeared that the offensive line wasn't as successful in those early on run downs to gain, a short third down, or get a second and short. It seemed like there was always a long distance. Like at one point or a couple of times, I swear it was like second and. I mean, it was just like they were going backwards
Mm-hmm.
instead of forward. So you were working the long yards early on, which was then preventing you, or maybe having to change your play calling perspective because you're not expecting to go on first and 10 to now be at first and 25 or first and 15, first and 20 or second and 20.
Right.
I'm sure that alters the play calling, but was there anything different that Howard was doing or less of what the offensive line was not doing?
Howard was just being more physical. I mean, that's all it boiled down to. Not so much Howard was doing. Howard was being more
Right.
physical. Howard came in with a good game plan against us, and what they did to slow us down is they always had a DB over the top of Noah Robinson, our best receiver.
Mm-hmm.
So they jam him. They'd be physical with him at the line of scrimmage, and then he couldn't get off, and then the other guys wasn't making a play. And when it comes to our offensive line, we've had a different combination of offensive line so far this year because of guys getting injured, not using that as an excuse. So we're trying to make sure our guys are in the right place and doing the right thing. So when you're dealing with, we had a new center on Saturday. Our starting center got hurt the week before, and we put a guy in behind him. We didn't think he got the job done doing practice. We put another guy in doing game that had practice better. So now we got a new center. We got different guards changed. So we have a new lineup in the front of those guys. So we're still trying to get those things together. On top of that, like I said before, we don't have that running back yet that we feel like can go in there and get the job done. And so between those combinations of running back being the patient and waiting for those blocks and the old line sometimes not knowing the combinations because it's a new offensive line, I think
Right.
that has a lot to do with it. But we still got to run the ball. We got to be able to run the ball, and especially this week going up against Gardner Webb, who has an unbelievable running game. They have a great running game, and they do a great job of stopping the run. So we got to make sure we pick our running game up and make sure we stop the run as we go down here and face this new opponent.
One of the things, even though it did not seem like it was going well for your team offensively, your tight ends got a lot of work in on Saturday, and they made some good plays down the field. Um, can you talk about the production of your tight ends on that day? Last name Jackson, number
Yes,
21. He had a
yes.
very good game. He had that nice touchdown catch.
And the thing about our tight ends, we want to implement our tight ends into our lineup. We do 11 personnel, which is one running back, one tight end, three wide
Right.
receivers. And we do 12. And we do 12 personnel, one running back,
Okay.
two tight ends, two wide receivers. And so we do those. Those are two personnel groupings that we do more than anything else. We want our tight ends to get involved because, as you can see, even at the highest level, tight ends are a huge part of offense. I mean, you look at Kelsey, you look at Gronk, you look at those guys. that were unbelievable tight ends, Anthony Gonzalez, who's been Shannon Sharp. Tight end become a great part because you got a guy that
Right.
Chase Jackson runs like a 4.6, 4.5. He's going up against a linebacker and a DB all the time. So it's a situation where he can big body those guys sometimes, and he can also run past them sometimes. So that's the good thing about it.
Right.
And Landon Lucas is also our other tight end who's 6'4" and does a great job. So our tight ends sometimes are going to be mismatched, and for the most part, people don't man tight ends. They're more zoning thing they can break on and make the tackle and stuff like that. So we did a good combination of getting the guys those balls. And we're going to continue to do that. I mean, they're a big part of our offense as well as the receivers. But in order for all that to work, Pitch, we got to get our running game.
Yeah. Two plays in particular in which I like the way you guys use the tight end. The one on the touchdown play, where Jackson made a nice move. He got the linebacker to think he was going outside when he actually turned in, was able to make a very nice catch and get the extended yards for the touchdown. The second one was a play where it looked like he did a tight end seam, and the quarterback hit him right where he needed, beneath the safety, above the linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
And those are plays that I thought, momentum wise, you guys were definitely or could have built off of. But I like what I seen on your tight ends and the
Yeah, I
way
mean,
that they ran their routes.
yeah, our tight ends are good players, and we got some guys that are younger than them that are also doing the same exact thing. We got a good tight end room. There's no doubt about it. Coach Delbert Tyler does a great job of those guys, and Coach Firm does a good job of implementing them into our offense. So that's the positive thing. We're gonna continue to do those things, but like I said, in order for that to open, the running game has to pick up.
Right. When did football become us? When did we become a tackling system to where we no longer run through the target?
I have, I have no idea, man. And the crazy thing about it, Pitch, all we do is practice tackling every day. But I always tell the coaches and I always tell the players there is a perfect way to tackle, but there's no such thing as a perfect tackle. Get him on
Right.
the ground. That's all
Right.
it boils down to. There's a perfect way to tackle. But you and I spoke about this last week. When you're looking at the ground, that's not a good tackle. If you don't see your target, that's not a good tackle. And you see a ton of that. You see it on Sundays. You see it every day
Yeah.
on Saturday. You see it on Sundays at the highest level. I was watching a game the other day with McCaffrey, and McCaffrey just jumps right over the top of a defensive back because he's
Hmm.
diving at his ankles and he keeps running for another 40 yards. And I'm thinking to myself, just hit him at his waistline. Keep your eyes up. Keep your hand on your target. Make sure you use your shoulder, front part of your chest. Keep your eyes on him. Wrap him up. Grab cloth and bring them to the ground. But there's so many
Right.
guys, and again, it must start at Pee Wee because and I know habits are hard to break because if you
Right.
continue to do that over and over, you're going to continue to do it no matter what. So, and there's nothing good's going to come out of you. You're going to miss the tackle, or a lot of times some guys may get hurt because they're putting their head down and they're going to make a tackle. So I can't answer that question for you, Fitz. I'm as frustrated about it as you are, especially when we practice tackling every single day, whether it's on a sled or whether it's on a donut or whether it's on each other. We still should be tackling a whole lot better than we're tackling.
Right, because when you talked earlier about the one where it was like four missed tackles on the one run, I was noticing, but not just with your team, in general, all of the teams that we cover, and like you said in the NFL, is that a lot of defenders nowadays they leave their feet before they get to their target. So you're lunging, you're diving, so you don't really have that force to drive through the target.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was coming up, I was always told to drive through the target. I don't want to just
Mm-hmm.
hit the target to make contact. I want to be able to drive through using my force to push them the area where I want them to go. And
Right.
I think it's difficult to do that when you're leaping or you're jumping or lunging. It makes it easier for either the running back, receiver, whoever to shift gears, shift the direction of the field, change the direction, or to be able to stiff arm your helmet down.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't have that much velocity to where that's an easy stiff. So it's just one of those things that I wanted to ask, like, when did this become a we lunge, we don't drive through the target anymore?
I don't know. I mean, and like I said, exactly how you describe is exactly how you're supposed to tackle. And on top of that, you got to grab cloth. And I've heard the saying, I'm sure you've heard it too, dead feet, dead meat. I mean, that's what's going to
Yeah.
happen to you. You're not going to be able to do anything when your feet are dead. You got to keep your feet moving. like you said, putting your body on the target, make sure you're running through the target, make sure you're grabbing cloth, bring them to the ground. You can't stop your feet, keep your feet moving. But again, it's an epidemic that I wish would stop when it comes to football because I need guys to tackle better. We need our guys to tackle better, and let's get guys on the ground because it's costing us football games.
Right. One of the things that we talked about previously too, when we spoke about our wows, it necessarily wasn't a wow, but we talk about trust and trusting your teammates to do exactly or be exactly where they're supposed to be. Everybody do their part, then we should be successful in whatever play we call. Did you sense a lack of trust amongst your team on Saturday?
No, not at all. To be honest with you, even with those missed tackles, guys were putting guys where they're supposed to be. And to be honest with you, when guys are missed tackles, they were exactly where they're supposed to be. Like our run fits on defense were there. It's just the guy that was there wasn't making the tackle. And I don't know if it was a situation where they weren't trusting each other. It was more about them, their technique. They were going away from their technique. They were leaving their feet, like you said. And it's more so the technique. It's like they didn't trust their technique. And then they didn't
Right.
trust each other. It's like they didn't trust their technique. They trust their teammate to be there, but now they didn't trust their technique to spill the play, to make the tackle, to bring their feet. So it's more about their technique, and that's why it's more on us as coaches. I think they trust each other. I think they believe in each other. It's just one of those things where Saturday we just had to really miss that.
Last week, our word of the week was complacent.
Mm-hmm.
What is our word of the week this week?
Our wow this week is confidence, and
Confidence.
the reason it's confidence is obviously the definition of confidence. A feeling of self assurance arising from an appreciation of one's own abilities or qualities. And so that's what confidence is all about. Well, how do you build confidence? Well, I told our guys the way you build confidence is through hard work. And you
Yes.
were in there when I spoke with the recruits, and I told the recruits that I was listening to this thing about motivation, and I was telling the recruits everything you want is on the other side of hard.
Hmm.
Everything you want is on the other side of hard when you're an athlete, when you're in business. And what it boils down to is in order to be rich, it's hard work. In order to be poor, it's hard work. In order to be in shape, it's hard work. In order to be overweight, it's hard work. Everything you want is on the other side of hard, but which hard are you going to choose? And when it comes to confidence, you become confident not because you're running your mouth, not because you're talking to the other guy. You become confident because you put in the work in practice to know that on Saturdays I'm going to get it done.
Right.
Bottom line, I know I can get it done because I put in the work. I know my abilities as a player because I've worked on my abilities every day in practice in order to become the great player that I am. Aaron Donald has unbelievable confidence because of how he works, not only in practice, but during the off season, how he takes care of his body. He knows that he's going to be dominant on that field on Saturdays because he's put in the work. And that's not cocky, that's confidence. When you have
Yes.
confidence like that, it's because of the work that you put in. And that's what it boils down to.
How important is study? When I mean study, meaning film tape. Not just with your team, but on your idle time, watching the game, watching you specifically, and watching the other team and see what they do better. How important is because I told a young student, he's a high school student. Him and my nephews who came to the game and another student, and I was telling them a lot of times in football, mental reps are just as important as physical reps because mental if you understand the play before you go out there and do it, you have a better chance of succeeding at that play when you understand and everything. Understanding meaning not just your position and what you have to do, but understanding what the other players and positions around you are doing as well. So you know what you're looking for, and where the tackle may come from. Is just being aware and understanding mentally how the player is supposed to look before you physically go out there and do that.
You're absolutely 100% right. And what it boils down to is as a linebacker, when I played linebacker and when I coached linebackers, the most important thing to me is I had to know what the defensive line was doing. Now, I wasn't a student of the game in the sense that I had the tendencies of the offense down pack and all that stuff, but I had to know the defensive lineman, if he gets reach, I got to get across the top of him because I got to fit the front side gap. If
Right.
he plays his gap, I got to slow down a little bit because I play backside gap. If everything gets washed in front of me, I got to fall back to make sure, because when the play cuts back, that's what's cutting back, because the D-line has done a great job of cutting everything off up front. So it's exactly what you said. And knowing those tendencies are extremely important. So the reason you have to watch film, because in college, we only get you for 20 hours a week. That's it.
Mm.
20 hours a week. That's NCAA regulations, and it's 4 hours per day that we can have you guys. So that's it, 20 hours a week. So we want to make sure, and 3 of those hours are game. So it's 3 hours. So it's 17 hours during the week that we can have guys and talk
Mm.
guys, because 3 of those hours are factored in the game on Saturday. So we got to make sure those 20 hours are quality hours. And on top of that, we load the film onto their phones or whatever situation, so they can go in and pull it up and they can watch the games. So they can watch the film of the guys who are about to play. So it's important they go in and they watch the tendencies of the offense and the tendencies of the offensive line, the defensive line. If they're set a certain way, if they feed her a certain way, is it a run, is it a pass? So exactly what you're telling your nephew and what you're telling your son is extremely important. You have to know tendencies of other teams and where your teammates are going to be doing those tendencies and doing those plays.
When you say that NCAA rules are that you only have 20 hours a week with the students, student athletes, does that include off the field? Does that include whether it's weight room? Wow. Okay.
Absolutely. Our guys, like, say yesterday, they can only lift weights for 30 minutes because the other 3.5 hours, we got to watch film with them. We got to go to practice and, and all the other stuff that goes along with it, because weight room, practice, video, meetings, all that stuff is factored into 4 hours a day, 20 hours a week. Now, the guys can say, hey, coach, I want to meet with you voluntarily, and they can meet with you if you want to do it that way. But you can't,
Mm.
outside of those 20 hours, you can't tell a guy, hey, we're going to meet with you at 7:30 in the morning and just make sure you're there. Because if you do that, and you get a disgruntled employee, and he calls the NCAA and say, we're meeting in the morning at 7:30 and I don't want to be there, and it's more than 20-hour rule, now you got a violation.
Wow. What was the hours before that?
There were none.
So, right. I was about to say I never heard of it being a time restriction on how often or how much you can you can work your players. I guess that explains why I don't see two a days half the time anymore like
No,
that.
there are no more tour days. Can't have tour days. They have to have a week off. They have to have a day off during the week. Like our guys' day off is on Sunday. We bring them in on Monday. Some guys' day off is on Monday. So between those 20 hours a week, they have to have a day off doing those 20 hours. Like we didn't have that when I was in college. And I always tell the players that,
Mm-mm.
and I'm like, guys, we didn't have that. We met at night, so you can go over there. You over there from 3:30 to 9 o'clock at night sometimes. But again, it is a good thing because it assures a young man of going to class and make sure they're going to graduate and not just worried about playing football. But when it
Right.
comes to football, you got to make sure your time is used significant as a coach. You can't just go in there and just meet just to meet. You got to make
Right.
sure everything that you have is detailed, organized, and you're getting it done when you're in that time period. And you're not talking about what I did when I was playing back in 1976. You're talking about what's going on today with these guys to make sure they're ready for the football.
Confidence. It's when the games when we're defeated, a lot of times people will say, it breaks your confidence down. But I think that in times it's the opposite. It depends on the individual. It depends on the person. Defeat, I think, in certain times can give you more confidence because you know that you have to work harder. You have to work smarter, and you have to be more diligent into whatever it is that you're trying to complete. And I don't think that, like I said, the score was not indicative of how the game actually was. It was more so the penalties and things of that nature. So, excuse me, I don't think confidence is something that team lacks off of this loss. Is different from the loss that when you played Youngstown.
Mm-hmm.
This loss was more so like this game really could have been ours early on.
Mm-hmm.
But we just happen to keep shooting ourselves in the foot, which, again, as I like to do, it ties into everything else we talked about. When you're confident, you're not complacent.
Yes.
When you're confident, you're not complacent. When you're confident, you train more, you practice more because you want to get better. That builds your
Mm-hmm.
confidence. And
Absolutely.
then being uncomfortable builds your confidence
Mm-hmm.
because you refuse to settle and you refuse to take whatever is there and know that. you could do more.
And that's why it goes back to what we talk about. There's winning and learning. There's not winning and losing. Exactly what you just said, Fitz. When you have confidence, you understand that I didn't do this the way I should have done it. I need to do this better. I need to work harder at this in order for me to accomplish this. So your confidence isn't shaken. You're just trying to figure out how can I build it up even more by getting myself better at this situation or at this entity of the game. And that's the great thing about having confidence because it's self-assurance in your abilities. It's self-assurance in your abilities. And if you're pushing yourself, and again, you can't talk yourself into confidence. You have to work yourself into confidence. And it goes back to what you said. When you're uncomfortable, you get more confident because you know that you have to work because you're not comfortable with what happened.
Like I text Booty after the after the game, and I told him, you know, don't allow the game to don't allow this game to put you in the funk because you were right there. You guys just got to execute better, but it's a long season ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime you have a loss, it's kind of like you have to put it out your mind immediately
Absolutely.
because you have to go into the next game, which then comes into the word of last week, complacent. You can't be complacent and looking at the results of the week before and expecting the same result without putting a new set of work in for the week ahead. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate you, Coach. Our wow is confident. It's an important attribute that you must have. You can't have self doubt. You can't go in thinking the worst. You have to have confidence that you belong on the field, that you belong in the classroom, that you belong on stage with whomever it is, regardless of who they are. So I look forward to our Thursday to see how this week's practice and preparation and training, and how the wow has been attributed into the practice of this week. And we look forward to execution Saturday, getting back onto the winning side of football. I
Sounds
appreciate you, Coach. Thank you
appreciate
for
you, Fitz.
having me this weekend, man. I had a great time.
I appreciate
Um,
you coming to hang out with us. And again, man, let's work this confidence this week. Let's get our guys' minds back where they need to be at it. Let's go, Bobby Moe.
Bobby Moe, you heard it. This is your boy Pitts, Pitt Sports Zone, Bowie TV, Comcast, Verizon. Follow me, everything Pitts and Push. Let's get it. The time is now. They say if you missed the train, it's another one coming. You just gotta work harder to catch up to everybody that was on the right train.
Let's go, man. Let's get it done. Have a great day, Fitz.
You too. Appreciate you, Coach.